Welcome to Truth Behind Travel podcast. I'm Dolores Semeraro, and this is my weekly show where tourism, travel, and hospitality industry professionals meet to discuss and share marketing strategies as they reshape the future of travel. If you want to learn the truth directly from the leaders and the doers of this industry, you are in the right place. Before you dive into today's episode, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast app. And while you're on it, go on and follow the show on Instagram and Facebook at Truth Behind Travel Podcast. Welcome back to Truth Behind Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Dolores Semeraro. And on this brand new episode, we're going to talk about a whole different take on travel. One that perhaps we should all embrace and make it part of our strategies moving forward. Our guest today is the founder of Charitable Travel, an innovative social enterprise travel company that combines charitable giving with great value, choice, and quality holidays, effectively promoting the principle of travel for good. There is so much to learn about how travel business can operate essentially by existing for the sole principle of giving instead of gaining. But I will let our guest tell us all about it. Join me as I welcome to Truth Behind Travel podcast, Melissa Tilling. Welcome back to the show and welcome, Melissa. Thank you for taking the time to join me on the podcast. How are you?
I'm very well, Dolores. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast.
Thank you. I think we had an interesting conversation on the podcast recently about what else can we do, what more can we do with other, business operators, and more to come in the future episodes. What else can we do to restore that travel confidence in travelers today? And on the podcast, I like to bring in as many voices as possible, not just the nitty-gritty of marketing, but also perhaps other take on tourism, other take on travel businesses that would serve as an inspiration to the operators that are listening to the podcast, as it has a very specific B2B sort of tone of voice. Today, we're going to talk about what propelled you in creating a completely different business model, that it's perhaps a unicorn in the industry. And it's, as you define it, charitable travel. The word itself speaks. And I want to know more about what made you get onto that business model. What's the mission? What's the purpose? How did you come about this call? So why don't you give us just to give us a background of your life within the travel industry, of course, because it's quite a rich and full of experiences, and then what brought you to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a story, I guess, of a realization or a revelation at a certain point in my career. I've been in the industry for 35 years, which dates me a little bit. Obviously, I started when I was only about 5. But I've been in the industry for 35 years. In the UK, primarily in tour operating and primarily in long-haul tour operating outbound from the UK. And I'd worked for a lot of different companies, including Thomas Cook, some independents like Premier Holidays in Cambridge, great company, Mark Warner, a ski operator. And I found myself at a company called Funway Holidays, where I was for the last 11 and a half years of my private enterprise life. I joined there as a product director and was promoted in 2017 to managing director. And I've been blessed, I think, in travel. I've loved every single day working in the industry. I've loved my job. I've gone through phases of being a workaholic, but I've always been powered by a sense of partnership and a sense of making something out of nothing. That whole sense of creating memories for people and ensuring that they're great memories, and using partnership to get to that point. So partnership with destinations, partnerships with hotels, airlines, and the team within the business to create those packages. And I felt probably a little bit distant from that process as managing director of the last private enterprise I was involved in. And I loved working with the team, but I felt a little bit drawn away from the sharp end of that creativity. It became more about people and finance. So I suppose that's inevitable a little bit when you get to that role. And it was quite a lot about vision and direction. So I kind of got to that point. And I was kind of thinking then, where do I go from here? Where in my career do I go? I've been pretty successful in making a nice salary for me, and hopefully very successful for private shareholders or institutional shareholders of the travel companies that I ran and worked in, and that had given me a pretty good life. I'm not a millionaire by any stretch of the imagination, especially not now after COVID, but we'll come on to that. I've been thinking about how I could draw the enjoyment that I did out of my daily travel career, and the people and the places that I loved working, but perhaps for an outcome that would be great for customers, but actually an outcome that would be philanthropic rather than the pursuit of pure profit for shareholders. So at that point, fortuitously, a redundancy option came up at virtually the same time that I've been thinking about this new model for the travel industry, and how I could combine those passions and wants into a new type of business. And this fortuitous redundancy option, and we're very lucky in the UK with our employment protection and employment laws, meant that I could move on after 11 and a half years from my holidays with some money behind me, and this new vision of how to turn travel into a philanthropic device for the good of beneficiaries and other people.
And you managed to achieve that and more, creating pretty much a unique model. What was your biggest challenge when you were building it?
I think it was working out all of the moving parts of how it would work, and all of the partnerships and people and relationships needed in order to make it work. Because I think you alluded to it before as a unicorn, but I truly believe that what charitable travel is completely unique. Now, I want to say now that I don't want it to be unique. Truthfully, I want to be copied, because the point of it is to create a more philanthropic outcome and a more community outcome than pure private enterprise. So yeah, I want to be copied, but right now, as far as I can see, worldwide, we're unique. So maybe I should explain how it works.
I just wanted to come to that. How does it work for those that are new to the concept? And so how does it work from a client perspective?
So I think it's important to say that charitable travel is underpinned by the principles of social enterprise. In the UK, we have a type of corporate entity called a community interest company. And I haven't seen that in many other countries as a type of company. It was started by the UK government in 2005 to enable a legal framework for social enterprise to exist beyond things like cooperatives that already existed, and obviously different from charities. So a community interest company, or a KIC, a CIC as it's known, has two defining elements which really underpin charitable travel. One is it's regulated and requires us to have a social purpose. It's really saying that if you say you're a social enterprise, you have to be a social enterprise and have a social outcome. So it creates some rigor around that commitment. And the second part of it is it changes the memorandum and articles of association of your company when you set it up, so that it defines that the surplus profit that you make as a business does not go in the majority to a shareholder. It goes in the majority, and actually 65% at least, to be donated to a registered charity that has to be approved by the regulator as well. So the underpinning of social enterprise really seemed to fit in with putting your money where your mouth is a great phrase. Putting your money where your mouth is, creating a travel business that has the discipline and regulatory framework to actually exist and do what it says it does. What I'd noticed a lot of was companies being philanthropic and saying that they're pledging money to charity, or they're doing this or doing that. And absolutely, I have no doubt they're doing that. But this regulatory framework actually proves to our customers, to our partners, to everyone, that we're legally complied to do what we say. Beyond that, and how it actually works day to day, is as a retail travel agency initially. So we're retailing on behalf of principals rather than being tour operators ourselves. That doesn't mean we can't be a tour operator, and it doesn't mean that we won't be in due course. But I started off wanting to be a retailer primarily because that gave us lower startup costs. It meant that we can be incredibly flexible about the product proposition that we give our customers to give the widest possible choice. And it also meant that we didn't have to have contractors. We didn't have to have contracts. It meant that we could leverage hundreds of tour operators that already exist, delivering great product to customers, and we retail that product. So we're a retailer. We take a commission from our tour operator partners whenever we sell their product, and the real magic is how we give back directly for our customers. Imagine you're looking at going to Italy on holiday. You come to us. We help you as much or as little as you need with product knowledge, with itinerary planning, logistics, or simply if you want a really great price, we'll quote you a really great price for the product that you already know. We'll reach out to tour operator partners that are, maybe if we need to, that are specialists in Italy, or if it's a commodity product, we'll simply package up maybe an EasyJet holidays offer or a TUI offer, and we would present that to our customers and endeavour, like every travel company does, to match customer need with product and price. And all of that is pretty standard stuff, although I think we do it better than anyone else, of course. You've got to be proud of what you have. And at the end of that process, we'll issue a confirmation invoice to the customer. We'll issue them, because in the UK market, we have to issue an ATOL certificate, which is kind of an insurance offered by the Civil Aviation Authority to cover the customer's money. And hopefully our customers are super happy with that. And this is where the difference comes in. We then offer the customer the opportunity to donate 5% of their holiday price to the charity of their choice. And we tell them that once they've made that donation to the charity of their choice, we will reduce the price of their £1,000 holiday by the 5% donation that they've made. So £1,000 holiday, £50 donation, the customer chooses the cause they care about. We get proof that the donation has gone through. Then we reduce the price of the holiday to £950 by sacrificing our profit margin or our commission, which sounds counterintuitive to a travel company, except for remembering that we don't exist for shareholder profit. We exist to be viable. We exist to be able to build our business, but at the same time, our primary existence is our social purpose, which is charity fundraising.
When you mentioned that you at the quote point or the payment point, and you present that option to the final client to say, look, you have an opportunity here to make a donation to a charity of your choice, or a charity that you might have amongst the range of association and organizations that you want to support. What's the reaction that you most often get from them? I kind of want to understand is it a cost conversation? Is it a money conversation? Or is it an added value conversation that you're having at that point?
I think it's a good question. I think when the customer gets to the point of talking to us on the telephone and talking to our reservations agents on the telephone and having that conversation, they already know what we do. So we're not suddenly hitting them with this brand new concept to them at the final point of purchase. We've had that check and verify conversation with them when they first come on the phone. They would have seen our marketing. They would have seen our messaging. One of our great, I suppose, points of difference is that many of our customers come to us from charities as charity supporters. And I can explain that a little bit more later. But there isn't sort of a hallelujah moment where the customer suddenly discovers they can donate to charity. They kind of already know that, and that's why they're coming to us. So I feel that by coming to Charitable Travel, they're making a deliberate ethical decision to book with a social enterprise that enables them to make a charitable donation to the charity of their choice. If they were coming to a travel company to save pounds and pennies and scrape the price as low as they possibly could, that's something that we won't do. We will offer a competitive price against a price that you might buy from another travel agent or from a tour operator that sells direct to the consumer. And our proposition to them is that you possibly could persuade somebody else to discount your holiday, but we're going to give you a great price and give you the opportunity to combine that giving and that thoughtfulness in the process of buying your holiday, and ultimately at no extra cost to you and at no extra cost to the charity. Now, it's true to say that if someone wanted to go onto the internet and search for hotels, and if it's a tailor-made itinerary, search for lots of different hotels, rent a car, go on the train, go on a low-cost carrier, possibly they would get it cheaper themselves. But we also bring the other benefits of booking through a legitimate travel company, which is financial protection. We secure people's money in a trust account, so we can't trade on customer money. We also offer atoll protection, and we offer accountability. So, in my view, and I guess I would say this because I'm in the established travel industry, we do something for our money. We do the research, we do the planning, we do the legitimization of the supplier. We protect your money. We ensure that if something goes wrong, that we're there for you, whether that is before departure, during departure, or post departure if something goes wrong on your holiday. And obviously no one can say that it'll never go wrong, because sometimes it does. But we'll be there to support you in that. And certainly we found one of the benefits of the pandemic has been a return to realization that travel agencies and legitimate tour operators have a place, because of the fact that so many people lost so much money and lost so much time and had so much angst from the fact that their arrangements all went wrong.
It's true. I think, if anything, over the past 2 years, we've seen a lot of, that mistrust. And because, as you just said, because a lot of people lost so much money, they had no option, they had no plan B, they had no recovery plan in across their travel itinerary and plannings. And you said something that really resonated with one of the studies that I'm conducting recently. It's about, how do you communicate upon something to trigger care first, to make that person care first, and then moving on to relating to the cause or to the subject that we're talking about, and from there on taking action towards a specific project or initiative, of partaking into whatever it is that the traveler can be part of. And today, what I see for most of the travel industry communication strategies moving out, trying to restore that trust, trying to rebuild from where they left off, or maybe rebuilding brand new. It's about communicating on something that doesn't inspire necessarily, that doesn't make the other side care. It's an informative process. So we are seeing now across the travel industry that all the communication strategies in place do not start from that point of communication for which the other side is supposed to care. You're not inspiring the right emotions, the right feelings, the right reactions onto your audience. You are informing them with facts, with details, with data about a specific project. And from that given information, you expect your audience to understand it. And from the understanding of it, you expect your audience to care. And from there, to take action. What I see out of the model that you have put in place is that, as you said before, whoever comes to us knows already what we're doing. So it's inbuilt in your communication strategy, in your purpose, in who do you say that you are standing for, what are the values you stand for, what's the actions you put forward. So in your case, you're not there, banging on a piece of information so that you're hoping your audience to understand, and therefore to care, and therefore to take action. You start right away from where they care. And from there on, the action is actually a natural, progression into what's next. So because they care, they do, and they take action, they get involved, they relate to these projects. It is one of the most difficult things in communication, is to really start from that care point instead of the pure factual information point. And a lot of people fail to do so. Tell me, how do you, when it comes to putting out the communications of charitable travel, how do you communicate on something that triggers care, be ahead of the price point, ahead of the travel promise, of the experience that you're putting together, and obviously how competitive you are compared to others in the travel agents in the industry? But How do you do that? Like if I have someone in the industry today listening to that, what would they go home with? What could they learn from you?
I think you, it is our biggest single challenge isn't to take a customer through the journey of buying travel and understanding how the process works and then actually doing it. It's actually finding the customer in the first instance who does care. And I think when I look back, and we started in April 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic, which was a challenge in itself. I think the actually identifying the people that care and trying to segment your marketing to find people that care enough to listen to what you've got to say is the biggest challenge. I think clarity or I suppose authenticity and clarity is what I would suggest. I don't think you can, I don't know what the charity equivalent of greenwashing is, but I don't think you can greenwash what we do, because I think you've got to make that you've got to make that ground up commitment to do what you say you're doing. And in our case, that's registering as a social enterprise. That's making the donation direct by the customer to the charity. That is making it completely transparent, completely fundamental to the whole business message, so that you're then left with trying to find people that are philanthropic sufficiently to buy into what is ultimately a no-brainer. And our biggest challenge, again, and we're a leader in this, of course, is the fact that we are unique. Nobody's ever done this before, and therefore we're trying to communicate a whole concept of travel for good, which is different to sustainability. It's different to responsible travel. It's different to considerations around the environment, but it is ultimately a sustainable method of business that doesn't create profit for profit's sake. It creates benefit for the community. So that is, that is probably, to answer your question simply, I think you have to be clear about your proposition. You have to target the people in the best way that you can with a simple message that is give 5% to charity for free, which is the message we bang on about the whole time. We carefully think about where we market. And I suppose when you look at PR and comms, we're talking to the quality press, we're talking to the charity press, we're talking to the charity sections of the quality press. We're working to have dialogue with those individuals so that we are trying to target a customer who has an ethical standpoint already, and so they may already be really interested in community tourism, or they may be interested in in this responsible, sustainable travel. And so we are not a big leap from all of those things. We're actually a simpler message than all of those things. Those things can get really, really complicated, really lack sometimes. Do you trust the certification? Do you what to actually pick? It's a minefield of what you actually pick. Whereas we're pretty basic. We and I say this tongue in cheek a little bit. We don't care whether you go to a carbon guzzling hotel on a flying on the oldest aircraft there is, because if you buy the package for £1,000, you're still going to make a 5% difference to a charity that you care about. Obviously, we don't want that to happen. We espouse values of sustainability and responsibility. But whenever we talk about that, we're doubling down on a basic concept of don't give money to a shareholder, give it to, enable us to sustain ourselves, but let us help your chosen charity. And I suppose that's the other big revelation that I had in setting up Charitable Travel, is that parallel to setting up the social enterprise, I also set up a tourism charity called the Charitable Travel Fund, which helps tourism communities in the developing world who become in need when tourism stops. And that was really the passion behind setting up the social enterprise, and that's where our net profit goes. But what I realized was that our customers wouldn't necessarily care about that charity. So the big revelation for me is it makes it much easier to enable customers who buy into our concept to care about what they care about. That's what we enable. We're not trying to tell you what to care about. We just want you to care.
This is exactly the point I elaborate across. Funny enough, you mention it. It's the point that I elaborate across the keynotes. It's important to niche down through not just a segmentation of ideal clients, which I believe in the tourism industry do no longer exist. We cannot say what is your ideal client anymore. We can say what is the client that cares about what you do. And in this case, when you try to reach this type of clients, and that before even becoming your clients, they could be potentially a audience out there. Then eventually, if your message is right, they become your audience. And after becoming your audience, they become your digital customers. So first they find you and they follow you and they buy from you, sort of like they buy into you digitally. And then they become your actual customers. And then they become your guests if ever, we come down to all the way down to the hotel, for example. And this is when it comes to, your customer base. But as you said, you are a retailer. And to be a retailer, you have to have a massive supplier base. And how do you make other operators care? Because I suppose in a line of work, especially in terms of authenticity, when you put together a package that, you put together the options for your based on your client request, you're vetting the suppliers you work with, the hotels you're choosing, the transportation or the services, the excursions, the experiences, everything. How do you make sure you build a supplier network that cares just as much as you do in the business, so that you can deliver upon a promise that doesn't fail when it comes to, you've done your part, and then the client is on the other side and it fails, it all falls down. But how do you do that?
I think I just wanted to answer one question first before I answer that point about when we were talking about where we market. And I think it's, in a way, the fact that we have had to embrace media and customer types that have a predisposition to be interested in climate, the environment, sustainability, and so forth. The fact that we have to fish in those ponds in order to find customers who have a propensity to understand the basic idea of booking with us and giving 5% of the price to charities is a bit sad. I find it a bit sad, but it's become a realization that you can't market, as you said, to everyone. You have to market to a group that you can define. And at the moment, there isn't a group that I can, other than our own customers and our own supporters, that I can absolutely define and say, these are people that want to buy from a social enterprise because they know it'll make a difference to their charity. Partly because we're in travel, we're certainly unique. And partly because there's no one really catering for that customer type, and also it's very fluid. So we've kind of reached the realization that at least, the line of least resistance is to find people with an ethical position, at least an opinion or an ethical position or a perspective on goodness, if you will. It's a funny word, but good, on being good in the broadest sense, and then kind of saying to them, well, it's not a great extension to then buy what you're going to buy, but buy it from us because you'll make even more difference. Ideally, we are accessible philanthropy. That was the kind of phrase that I coined at the very beginning, was we make it easy for people to give to charity because it doesn't cost them anything. We're not asking them to put their hands in their pockets and pay £50 when they bought £1,000 holiday. We're saying, or temporarily put your hand in your pocket and pay it directly to the charity so that it's a transparent transaction. But actually, you're going to get it back again because I'm going to give you a price that you can't get anywhere else by discounting it by 5%. That's the kind of subset that I'd like to get to those people. But at the moment, I realise that I can't, because trying to identify, they ultimately, that group is our customer. And I obviously want that to be massive. Going back to your other question, we do have a vast array of product that's available. The original premise to be a retailer was because of the concept of accessible philanthropy. We didn't want to turn down any customer who came to us who wanted anything travel wise, that would end up making a 5% donation to a charity that they cared about. So we'll sell a staycation, we'll sell a cruise, we'll sell ski, we'll sell a commodity product, a tailor-made, sustainable or not, we'll sell it, providing it's legal, providing it's from a legitimate tour operator and it's ATOL protected. Beyond that, because we are rational, sensible, thinking people and tourism professionals, we obviously want to find tourism businesses and travel businesses amongst our suppliers that enable us to extend that basic no-brainer concept even further by ensuring that we pick and promote as much as we can customers who have thought about their impact on suppliers who have thought about their impact on their environment, their impact on cultural and physical heritage, that have thought about their impact on the communities that they are sending customers to, that they're trying to minimize their impact on the places and keep the wealth in the places that they're operating to within those communities for the benefit of the people in those places. So we do seek them out, and we're fortunate in the UK to have a fair number, but they're still not enough. There are some shining lights of people like Intrepid, G Adventures, Exodus, and others who have made steps in drawing to the customer's attention the methods of travel that are the least impactful from a hydrocarbon standpoint. I think everyone in travel, almost everyone, realizes that in order for our industry to exist, you've got to get on a plane. But you just have to, otherwise you might as well give up being in the industry or really niche down and be an operator like Byways, which is a great model for short haul, rail based, ferry based tourism. But beyond that, you've got to make some decisions to try and focus on the most modern aircraft, the aircraft that emit the least CO2, and then harness it with accommodation that has in some way been accredited for its practices when it comes to its own environment, its own impact on its communities. And we make a point of saying that to our suppliers. What are your what are your credentials? What do you do? How do you signal that supply that is going to help us to offer the customer that we have that wants to make a difference to their own charity, to make a difference to their planet, to the communities, and so forth. And we'll gravitate towards them, or the product that, or from within their product proposition that is more tuned to those things. That said, I still go back to the fundamental that if I can't find that, I'd still rather take the 5% charity donation, because I know it's going to make a difference to someone or an animal or the environment or the choice that the customer makes as to where their money goes. We produce an award-winning customer magazine called Charitable Traveler. We produce a bi-weekly newsletter called the Charitable Traveler Report. And we do a lot of social media marketing. In every case, we are endeavoring at every stage to communicate positive tourism opportunities. We're not deliberately going out there and saying, don't think about these things. We're using our platform of philanthropy to add to that without preaching, but to show people that, this is the impact of making the right decision. This is the impact of not making a bad decision. This is the impact of, if you do have to pay more, which I'm not convinced you always have to pay more, of staying in a green certified hotel, getting an electric vehicle, going on a flight that's half an hour later because it's on a more modern aircraft and it has a less CO2 impact. But I think that's beholden on us. And we did a survey back in June of a national representative survey. And some of the questions we asked is why I think tourism businesses need to care, is that 66% of people we asked, just random people, are interested in taking a more sustainable holiday, but they don't know how to do it. And so it's business sense that transcends anything. That if 66% of the 2,000 random people that we asked through our survey company about this said that they're interested in taking more sustainable holidays, the fact that they don't do that at the moment doesn't mean they don't want to do it. And if everyone continues the journey that we're all on, because it's not a destination, it can't be a destination yet. If we all continue on this journey of endeavoring to put forward easier ways for customers to identify good choices, then they're going to gravitate towards it, regardless of our 5% model. Obviously, I wish they do that too, because £44 billion is what they're saying the market for travel is going to be in the UK. Imagine if everyone did that and 5% went to charity. That's a transformational amount of money. But anyway, I bleat on about that a bit more. But
you read my mind. You absolutely read my mind, because
if we all turned into, and I'm not some social enterprise evangelist. I just think it makes sense. Have enough money, but don't have more than enough money. You don't need more than enough money. You need enough money. Social enterprise is then the opportunity to support the community around you. But anyway, if 66% of people want to make a sustainable choice, then tourism businesses, if they haven't already, and I believe many of them are waking up, if not well woken up, they better embrace it, because if they don't start talking about sustainability and the right choices and showing their customers how to do it and being demanding of their hoteliers, of their transportation companies, of their airlines, of their cruise lines, in making sure that there's clarity around what they're doing, then they're going to lose customers in the end and they're going to be gone.
Lastly, when you consider the outlook of Charitable Travel moving forward? You said you've started this business at the peak of the pandemic, which is obviously an
I am
unfortunate,
certifiable in that
an
sense.
unfortunate, sort of recollections. Like, where did you start your business? And then you always have to bring back up that this very, critical and global critical moment in time that everybody went through, and instead of recollecting like a happier moment. No, for you was a light bulb moment in a way. So when you look at the next 2 to 3, 5 years of Charitable Travel, where is the work heading to? What's there to do? What are your future projects?
We will continue to bang the drum of social enterprise and also making smart choices about travel, because we've realized that trying to tell the masses about accessible philanthropy, we're before our time. Other than those charity supporters, we're ahead of our time, because the vast majority of customers don't care. That they don't care. And so we need to either find people that care because they care about the charities that they love and the causes that they love, or we need to bang the drum and present sustainable and responsible travel to that woke group, and then build on our 5% message. So we'll continue to do that in our magazine. We'll continue to do that in social media, in partnerships with DMOs. One of the really exciting byproducts of what we do is working with DMOs to promote destinations, and to promote the good in destinations, and I mean good in the kind, thoughtful sense.
I think the more people know about it, the more awareness we can raise around this type of travel, this type of business model, this type of purpose that really, it doesn't have to be rocket science. It really needs to be just as simple as possible. Keep it simple. That's always my go-to.
That's what took 6 months from when I left my last role to launching Charitable Travel, is to make it as simple and as seamless as possible. The irony of that is, because it's brand new, it's still hard to communicate, because people don't believe you. They don't, there's an element of people that you say, well, it's not going to cost you any more, and you can help Alzheimer's research, or you can help World Wildlife Fund with they don't believe you. And so we spend a lot of time making sure we're reinforcing that, no, this is real. This is a real thing. Yes, I know I should maybe sail off in a yacht one day, and in a super yacht one day, but it's not what it's about. It's about it's about giving back. It's about using the experience and the opportunities that we've had in order to make a difference to as many people as we can.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I learned a lot, and actually I was very, very pleased to hear from you that a lot of the mindset, we're very much aligned in what we think should be communicated across the industry to make travelers care first. So thank you so much. And so we'll see you soon again on the podcast when more of your, I don't know how to call them, adapts, We'll see you soon again on the podcast when
thank you
the conversation remains open.
It's been amazing. If we can see lots of children of charitable travel being born, nothing would make me happier.
Perfect. Well, let's keep the conversation open, and all the best for the work ahead. Thank you for joining me today. Haven't we learned a lot about charitable travel today? Well, I know I did. If you want to know more or get in touch with Melissa at Charitable Travel, head over to the show notes right after the episode. Go grab her contact details. Before you go, if you've loved this episode, I would appreciate if you could send me your feedback. a simple message or an email, anything would do, as long as I hear from you, or even better, a review on Apple Podcast if you're on it. Thank you again so much for being here with me, and see you soon for another episode of Truth Behind Travel Podcast.